part 2 of the king cake video. Yesterday we made our fillings and our glazes, our icings, caramel sauce. Today we're going to be making the dough and rolling it out and filling it and baking it and decorating it and make it look like a king cake. So the first thing we're going to do is start making our dough. All right, so the first thing we're going to do to make the dough is make a sour cream mixture. I've got a 16-ounce container of sour cream. And we're also going to put 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/3 cup of sugar, just regular sugar, and 1/4 cup of butter, which is half of a stick of butter. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to heat this up on low till the butter is melted. So you need to stir it often also so that it doesn't scald or anything like that. So we're just going to mix this up and heat it on low till all the butter is melted. Stirring often. All right, so this is done. All of our butter is melted and incorporated in there. So we're just going to take it off the heat and let it cool. You want to let it cool to 100 to 110 degrees. But if you don't have a candy thermometer or something like that, I'm going to show you what you can do. All right, my candy thermometer is broken, and so I don't have one today, but I need to know how hot this sour cream mixture is. So if you don't have one, but you have one of these, because it is such a low temperature of only about 100 degrees, you can use it. It's not 300 like if you were making candy, so you can use this for this. Now, before anyone freaks out, this is all I use this one for. It hasn't been used for anything else, but just to calm some people's nerves, I've got an alcohol wipe, and I'm going to thoroughly clean it with the alcohol wipe and rinse it off with a little bit of soap and water. All right, so we're just going to put this in here and turn it on and see if it's the right temperature that we need. And it is. It is 102 degrees, so that's good for us to use. All right, I've got a 1/2 cup of warm water, and you don't want it too hot because it can kill your yeast, but you don't want it too cold because then it won't activate. So lukewarm water, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar to the water, and then we're going to add 2 packs of the 1/4 ounce active dry yeast. We're just going to stir that together, and we're going to let this sit for 5 minutes so it can bloom. All right, while we're waiting for our yeast to bloom, I've just got 2 large eggs in here, and I'm just going to lightly beat them. All right, so I'm going to come over here to the stand mixer. I hope it's plugged in this time. And we're going to put in 2 cups of flour, 1/3 cup of sugar, and we're going to also put in our yeast mixture. You can see what I mean by saying it bloomed. Let's see. It gets all puffed up. It blooms. I don't know how else to describe it. We're going to put that in here. Also going to put our eggs. And we're also going to put our sour cream mixture. Right now, we're just going to beat this. I'm going to start with the paddle attachment and then switch to the dough hook when it gets too thick for the paddle attachment. So I'm just going to beat that on medium until it's smooth. It was plugged in. All right, now I'm going to scrape down my sides, and I'm going to add another 2 cups of flour. And I may have to switch to the dough hook on this one. And I'm just going to mix that till it starts getting all incorporated. I should have definitely put my apron on. All right, I'm going to scrape my sides down again. And I've never made this by hand, but I don't see why you couldn't. It would just take a lot of work, but you could probably do it. Actually, you can make anything by hand. All right, I'm going to put in another 2 cups of flour. Alright, so you see it's starting to make that noise. That means I need to take this off and put my dough hook on. I've got my dough hook on here, and I'm just going to turn it on low and let it start getting real incorporated. And if you put 6 cups of flour in and you see that it's still stickier than what you think it should be, you can put another half a cup of flour in there. I just poke it, and if it just stays there and doesn't come off on my hand, then that means I've got enough flour. So now we're going to take this out and turn it onto our counter and knead it. All right, I'm just going to lightly dust my surface with flour. I'm going to do my hands too. And I have not put an apron on, so hold on. I'm going to turn the dough out onto the surface and knead it. The recipe calls for 10 minutes or until it's smooth and elastic. To me, when it comes to kneading dough or working with dough, it's usually not about how long you do it. It's about how the texture of the dough is. So I'm just going to sit here and knead this dough for about 10 minutes. Alright, so I did knead this. I kneaded it 11 minutes till it got to the texture that felt right to me. If you've ever worked with dough before and you make this recipe, you'll see what I'm talking about. It is a beautiful dough. Just the texture of it, it's so velvety and buttery. It is a beautiful, beautiful dough, if you're into that sort of thing. So now, I'm going to take it and I'm going to cover it. I like to cover my doughs with a damp cloth when I'm waiting for them to rise. So I'm just going to cover this with a damp cloth and let that rise for an hour till it's doubled in size. Alright, so while our dough's rising, I'm going to go ahead and finish up our glazes. Now with king cakes, you could just leave the glaze white and glaze the cake and then put the colored sugar, the purple, gold, and green sugar. And if that's how you want to do it, that's fine. Sometimes I do it like that. But then other times I like to take my glaze and split it in thirds and color each one purple, yellow, and green. I guess that is your preference if you want to do that. So I've just got our glaze we made yesterday. I've also got half of the caramel sauce that we made. The other half we put in the cream cheese filling. I just took maybe a fourth of a cup of the glaze and put this in the caramel sauce, and I'm going to mix that up, and that'll be our glaze for the pecan caramel cream king cake. So I've already got my purple, and I went a little overboard with the food coloring, so it's a very dark purple, like a regal purple. And all I'm using is just the Wilton concentrated food coloring. You could use whatever kind you want, but I'm just gonna take this and put half of it in here and color it green. So if you've never used these kinds of food coloring before, they're serious. They mean business. So if you get this on you, your hands are probably going to be stained for several days. I can't ever seem to get it off. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there. It does not take very much, as you can see with the purple. Alright, I'm just going to whisk it together. See, I put just a little bit. It doesn't take much at all. They're very concentrated. Now I'm going to do our yellow. And I just like to move them into these smaller bowls. To me, it's easier to get the color evenly mixed. And later, whenever we ice the cake, I just like them in the smaller bowls. Alright, so we'll mix our yellow together. And these colored icings are for our traditional cinnamon-filled king cake. The caramel pecan cream cake, it's just gonna be garnished with the caramel glaze and pecans, roasted pecan. All right, so there's our colored icings. And now I'm just gonna mix my caramel sauce with this fourth of a cup of the glaze that I put on here. Alright, so also while we're waiting for the dough to rise, I've got a cup of pecans that I'm going to chop up and roast in the oven for a little bit to sprinkle on top of the pecan caramel king cake. And I just want to say thank you to my wonderful mother-in-law and granny-in-law for these pecans. So I'm just going to do a rough chop on these. And you could also mix pecans in with the caramel cream cheese filling. I'm just putting them on top because one of my children doesn't like nuts yet. He's still too young. So I'm just going to be putting them on the top so that he can, or I can pick them off for him. I'm just going to put these in this little pan. And I don't even know if I'm going to use that many pecans, but I'm just going to roast them in a 400-degree oven. I will time it. I usually don't time it. The breaker. I usually don't time it. Now it's dark. I usually don't time it. I just roast them until I can smell that nutty flavor, but I will time it. All right, so I roasted these about 4 minutes on 400 degrees, and I went back and put a few whole pecans in there too, just because they're pretty for decoration. All right, so our dough has risen, and this is the fun part, for me anyways. You're gonna punch your dough down to get all that air out. All right, so I punched that down. I'm just gonna cut the dough in half. Take half of it out. Cover the other half over here till we're ready for it. Just gonna lightly flour my surface and my rolling pin. Okay, and we're gonna roll this into a triangle. The recipe calls for 22 by 12 inches. I actually have marks on here, so this would be 12 inches and this is 22 inches, but you don't have to have it exact. You know, I'm not saying get your tape measure out or anything like that. So I'm just gonna roll this out. And this dough is so easy to work with. It is such a pretty dough. Oh, the texture is just awesome. All right, so that looks about 22 by 12. They're as close as I'm gonna get. Now I'm gonna take the caramel cream cheese the caramel cream cheese filling. I'm just gonna put it on here and spread it out. All right, now we're just gonna spread it into an even layer, leaving about a 1-inch border around the edges. All right, so now we're gonna take it and we're gonna roll it like a jelly roll. Okay, just roll it up. Hope you can see what I'm doing. All right, we got that rolled up. All right, I'm just gonna take a cookie sheet and just lightly spray it. And we're gonna put this on here with the seam side down. And I've got food coloring somewhere. Take this, and put it on here. And we're just going to make an oval shape with it. I like to take a paintbrush and just a little bit of water and brush the ends of these so that they'll stick together really good. I'm just gonna seal this in together. Just push it together. All right, so this is what it'll look like. We're gonna cover them and let them rise for 20 to 30 minutes, but now I'm going to roll out the traditional version. All right, I'm just gonna lightly redust my surface with flour in my hands. And we're gonna do the same thing with this. We're just gonna roll it out into a rectangle. I like to kind of get mine sort of the shape of a rectangle first. All right, so we're just gonna roll this out. All right, now this one, I have time to braid it, so I'm going to. But if you didn't want to take that extra time, you could do this one exactly the same way as the other one. But if I have time, I like to do them this way because they are pretty, you know, twisted and braided. So I'm just gonna cut this in half. I'm gonna move one of these to the side over here. All right, so I'm just gonna take part of this cinnamon filling, put it in here. Just spread this out in a thin layer. Like I said, it's not going to be as much as the cream cheese filled one. It's not going to have as much filling. Which I guess if you wanted more filling, you could make a double filling recipe. The traditional cinnamon filled king cakes, it's not a ton of cinnamon swirl in it. It's just a light cinnamon swirl filling. So it's not a ton of it like a cinnamon roll. There's less than what a cinnamon roll would have. Again, try to leave about a 1-inch border, which sometimes I'm not always successful with that. We're going to do the same thing, just roll it up. I'm going to try to roll this one up a little bit tighter since it is smaller. Move that one to the side. Get this one. Going to do the same thing. Just smooth all the rest of this cinnamon filling on here. Alright, again, I've got a pan, and my pans do look like they're from World War II, but they work. I've had them for a really long time. They haven't failed me yet. Now, I'm going to take this with the seam side down, just like the other one, and I'm going to braid them together. Get my little brush. I say braid, but it's really I'm just twisting it together. Just to get it to stick to each other. And I'm just going to fold it over each other like this. It's not really a true braid, but I'm just going to do it like this. Push this in together. And again, just form an oval with it. Look like that. We're just going to cover this one, and we're going to let both of them rise for about 20 to 30 minutes before we bake them. And we're going to go ahead and preheat our oven to 375. All right, while our cakes are rising, I was just going to talk just a minute about the traditional baby that's in a king cake. It was meant to represent Jesus with the season of Lent coming up. But before that, there was a bean used instead of a plastic baby. The French people would put a bean in the cake, and whoever found the bean was to host the next party or bake the next cake. So I could not find any plastic babies at Walmart or any other store I went to. So I'm going to be using the traditional bean. Now, the only bean I have is a dried pinto bean. So I'm going to be very aware of where I put it in the cake since it's so little. I would rather have a big red kidney bean, but I don't. So I'm going to be very aware of where I put this little bean so that nobody chokes on it. But anyways, if you can find plastic babies, put one in there. If not, just use the traditional dried bean. All right, so I've let these rise for 25 minutes. And now I'm going to bake them in the oven, 375 for like 14, 16 minutes until they're golden brown. All right, so I actually ended up baking those 20 minutes till they got this color that I wanted. I like a good golden color. So now I'm just going to let these cool for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to put them on the cake plates and put our icing on them. Got these cooled and on the cake boards. I'm going to go ahead and hide my bean in here, and I'm going to hide it where I always hide the plastic baby if I have one. Where I joined the two ends, right here, where I joined the two ends, and on here. That's where I'm going to hide it. So if you ever have king cake with me and want to find the baby, just get that piece. That way I remember where it is. If someone gets that piece, I know not to let them choke on the bean. So if you're putting a bean or a baby in it, just be very careful and aware of where that bean or baby is so someone doesn't choke, especially a small child. I'm going to do the caramel one first. And I'm just going to take my caramel sauce and just kind of drizzle it and smooth it all over here. And it's not going to be a ton of icing, but the filling is very sweet. So you really don't have to have an overpoweringly sweet glaze. But if you wanted lots of glaze, lots of icing, then you go right ahead and put as much as you want, as much as makes you happy. Like my mother, she loves icing and stuff like that. She calls it the goodie. She wants all of her stuff to have lots of goodie. So if you're one of those people, by all means, make a double recipe of the caramel glaze. I'm just going to go around, spread this out on it, and it'll heat up in a minute and start dripping down the sides and in the middle. All right, so our caramel glaze is starting to drip down the sides. It heated up, so it's going to start dripping down the sides of our cake. And that's what king cake icing is supposed to look like. It's supposed to just be a glaze that drips off the side of the cake. All right, so there's our caramel glaze on there, and I'm just going to take some pecans and sprinkle them around for decoration. So there's this one. All right, so now I'm going to do our traditional cinnamon filling. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to alternate the colors. So I'm going to do green, yellow, gold, green, yellow, gold. You could just take it and drizzle it on there however you want. I'm going to try to put a separate color, a different color on each one of these little twists, just to give it kind of a design. Let's see. I'll start with green. So see, I'm just putting it on this little twist. I'm going to rub it on the top of that little twist. And just let it melt and slide down. All right, there's our green. We'll do our yellow next. All right, now for our purple. That I got way too dark. Went a little overboard with the purple dye. So it's a very, very dark purple. But I have some shiny purple spray, and I think I might put some of that on here. Alright, so there's that one. The purple didn't come out too bad. I don't know how it looks on the camera, but it's actually, you can tell it's purple in real life. So I think I'm going to experiment. I've got this edible glitter spray, and I'm just going to try to put a little bit on the purple. I might regret this. I also have this edible gold glitter spray, so I'm going to spray a little bit of that on the yellow. Alright, so I did not end up regretting that. It came out pretty. And I'm going to lay my beads on there. And you just take the beads and you just lay them around the cake. Just for decoration. I think I'm going to spray some of this gold glitter on my caramel cake too, because it came out pretty good. So that one came out cute. Since I have the supplies, I'm going to just keep on playing with this because I'm having fun experimenting. This is with just the gold on it. It's very shimmery, but there isn't a whole lot of contrast. It's still pretty though. But I've got some green and I've got some purple, and I'm just going to squirt a little bit around it just to see how it comes out. Let's see. All right. So that's how that one came out. It's more of a pastel Mardi Gras color. It's very shiny and shimmery, but overall, I'm glad that I experimented and made my cakes pretty. But I hope y'all try this. If you do try them, please let me know how it comes out. This could be really fun to do with kids, with family. You can make a lot of different variations. The cream cheese filling, you can put strawberry in there with it. Any type of fruit filling, you know, we put a lot of fruit filling mixed in with the cream cheese down here. Bavarian cream filled, chocolate cream filled. So you don't have to make exactly like I did. My variation was that I put a caramel sauce in with the cream cheese and made it a caramel pecan cream cheese. And then of course you can do just the traditional. You can braid it like this, or you can just do the traditional round one. You can even put a bean in it if you can't find a baby. But happy Mardi Gras. Thank y'all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.